Hello, Jacksonites. I am officially back to YouTube. I am making this my official I am back video. Like I said with my previous videos while I was on leave, that was just something that were more spur of the moment type things, or there were just stuff that I really, really wanted to do while I was on leave. But obviously, when I was on leave, I could not really do a lot of YouTube because my baby boy was born. I am now officially a father, if I haven't stated that already. My boy's name is Roman Lee Jackson, and he was born on my wife's birthday at 4:52 in the morning. Yep. I have a plan to make a video detailing the entire birthing process of getting Roman to come into this world. I'll just briefly say it was a nightmare. It was a total nightmare, but I'll save those details for when I get around to doing that video. But yes, I am now officially back. I was thankful, or I am very thankful I was able to go on paternity leave for 6 whole weeks. A 6-week long vacation. And Meadow kept telling me that it's not going to be a vacation. Compared to doing my job, staying at home and taking care of my boy, I'll call that a vacation because I'd rather do that. No, Steven, I already have plenty of parenting advice because I work with a lot of dads. Thank you, though. I appreciate it. And thank you all to all the congrats from all of my fans, like Shawnee Boy in the chat here. I'll briefly say, because I know one question when I eventually get around to doing a Q&A in the next couple of weeks, how is parenthood so far? I'll just say I think it's a big mixed bag, if I'm being honest. There's things that I really love. Like I love when Roman falls asleep on my chest when I'm trying to calm him down after he wakes up for a morning cry and he just goes on me. And he has a funny snore. He goes like, that's his snore. I think it's cute. No, Roman has no godparents, Stephen. At least not yet. If we ever do that. So I love that. And I'll admit, I don't really like it when he has his purple crying moments at 5 o'clock in the morning when I've been awake for 18 hours. Just being honest. So, yeah, parenting is a mixed bag thus far. There's things I like. There's things I don't like. But that's all I'm going to say for right now. I'll do a parenting how my son was born video later down the road. I don't know when, but I will do it. But paternity leave was fun. It was a lot of fun, honestly. 6 weeks of just being able to stay at home. And what do you think I did aside from looking after my son while my wife recovered because she had an emergency C-section? I watched a lot of movies. As stated in my last movie collection video, part 1, there was a whole bunch of movies in that video that I bought that I still hadn't watched. And over the course of my leave, I managed to tear through a whole bunch of those, actually a vast majority of them. I managed to tear through them finally because I was finally able to get some free time to sit down and just watch movies. And also while Roman is awake at night, I'm trying to calm him down. Kind of does force me to just sit down and watch my movies. So that's nice and good and all. That didn't happen. So yeah, that was nice. I tore through a whole bunch of movies. And thankfully, there wasn't really any movies that I watched that I thought were bad, aside from the couple crappy Land Before Time movies. Well, there were a couple bad movies on this list. Surprisingly, I didn't really go through that many TV shows. I got through a couple, I mostly just focused on movies while I was on leave. Because you can't deny TV. I love TV and movies equally, but movies are easier to watch than TV shows because TV is longer. Duh. Um, so nothing super extravagant with this video. I just wanted, and admittedly I was partially inspired by a new YouTuber who I've discovered. Her name is Jerome Weaselberry, I think her name is. And she does this video series called What I Watched in June, or what I watched in any month. And she just gives like little mini reviews of all the newer movies that she's watched. So I was inspired by her to do this kind of video. So yeah, I just want to briefly go over all the movies that I watched over my paternity leave, and I'll give brief reviews on each of these films. The first of which being Deep Blue Sea 3. I talked about this in my last video. I really enjoyed Deep Blue Sea 3. I thought it was definitely better than Deep Blue Sea 2. That's for goddamn sure. Deep Blue Sea 2 was fucking atrocious. But yeah, I like Deep Blue Sea 3. It had decent gore, had some surprising and gory kills, had a fairly decent story, had some fairly decent tension, really good effects, lots of pretty colors. And I thought it was actually a fitting conclusion to the Deep Blue Sea series. I would like to see at least one more Deep Blue Sea film, being a bit cliche and introducing a megalodon, like a genetically engineered megalodon. Be stupid, but I think it'd be cool. But yeah, not much to say. I already talked about this one. I like Deep Blue Sea 3. Next up is Anna, directed by, I think, Luc Besson, which came out in 2019. Oh. I also, another reason I watched a whole bunch of movies while I was on leave is I was inspired to do another video where I rank all of, God, it's warm in here. Where I rank all of the movies that I've seen from the year 2019. Kind of like another redo of my top 2019 films, because goddamn, 2019 was such a fucking fantastic year for movies. But this was like another 2019 catch-up video or movie. Like I said, Anna, directed by Luc Besson. No. I had watched this after I watched John Wick 3, so I'll talk about that a little later. How is this movie not in the John Wick universe? This probably wasn't intentional. In fact, I'm pretty sure it wasn't. But Anna felt very much like a female version of John Wick. But I didn't think that was a bad thing. I went into... The only knowledge of Anna that I went into with was watching the trailer a couple of times. And I kind of liked what I saw. Like, I thought it was pretty unique that some chick uses two halves of a dinner plate as twin blades. I was like, oh, okay, this might be kind of cool. And I didn't expect going into Anna that it was not so much an action movie, even though it had action scenes. It was a spy thriller. And I've said before, I'm not a big fan of spy movies, but there are certain ones I like. And actually, I can say Anna was one that I enjoyed. It had a pretty decent plot. It had, for the most part, kind of unlikable characters, but somehow the movie does make you care for obviously the main character, Anna. She's just lived nothing but a life of shit, and entering the KGB, which is Russian CIA, she tries to fight her way for a new and clean life among the many twists and turns and plot threads that all eventually lead to her getting her own way of getting a new life. And I thought it was entertaining. It was well told and well made. Not the greatest thing in the world, but I liked Anna. It had some good acting, really good action scenes. Decent soundtrack. And I've been watching a lot of movies with Cillian Murphy in them lately. Wonder if that's a trend. So yeah, Anna, I liked it. Next up, we have an entire franchise, and I'm going to talk about all of these at the same time because I just don't have that much to say about them. And I actually have them right behind me, right here. The entire Mad Max franchise. Lately, I've been feeling the urge to broaden my movie horizons and get into some franchises and genres that I've never seen before. Because I'm not saying like I'm getting stale with my collection, but I feel the need to expand. I want to get some fresh stuff. Hang on. So I was at my Walmart and I found the Mad Max franchise, all 4 movies for only $10. So I said, okay, why not? 4 movies for $10? Okay, sure. Mad Max the original sucks ass. Not even gonna lie about this one. I didn't like the first Mad Max movie. I thought it was utter shit, honestly. A very piss poor post-apocalyptic movie. You could fool me if this was a post-apocalyptic movie. It doesn't even remotely look like a post-apocalypse. It just looks like Australia. 1970s Australia. It's also cheap as all living shit. Lacks any kind of villain. Bad acting. Bland, boring characters. Very piss poor action scenes. And a very pointless story. Mad Max, the original, sucks donkey balls. Fuck me. That's probably honestly the only bad movie that's on this list that I watched. Again, aside from the shitty Land Before Time movies. Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior, was better. Slightly marginally, but it was better. It had a couple entertaining scenes. At its barest minimum, it did this, but it did more showcase that it was a post-apocalyptic film. The acting is better. Mel Gibson's a lot better in this film. The action scenes were better, like including the final climactic tanker truck chase that lasts the last 20 minutes of the movie. I liked it. I thought it was entertaining. Nothing super special, but The Road Warrior was a decent movie. Mad Max 3 Beyond Thunderdome was also decent. It had moments when it was really good. Like it starts off really solid, and it has kind of an entertaining third act, but its second act just slows the fuck down and gets so dull and boring, and it's filled with so many annoying kid characters. It kind of just took me out of the movie, and despite the third act being somewhat entertaining, it just didn't really make up for it. And then finally, we have Mad Max Fury Road. Now, I actually remember all the hype that surrounded this movie when it first came out. Oh, that's why, because Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome is PG-13. How convenient. Explains a lot, actually. So yeah, Mad Max Fury Road. Good movie. Fairly entertaining film. It's got really good effects. Really good action scenes. Tom Hardy does a great job as Mad Max. It's got a great setting. An okay story. It feels a bit redundant because it's one big long road chase movie, and then halfway through the film they decide, oh, let's just turn back and go the way we came. Okay. The characters are decent. The villain certainly is despicable and kind of creepy. Um, the only issues I have with Mad Max Fury Road, one, it doesn't live up to its hype. It's hailed as quote unquote one of the greatest action movies of all time. No, it's good. It's entertaining. It's well made, but one of the greatest of all time? No. And what I feared, Mad Max feels like a guest star in his own movie because the director wanted to showcase Charlize Theron's character and make way into a spin-off movie based on her character. Fuck you. But overall, yeah, Mad Max Fury Road definitely is the best of the franchise. And I feel like Mad Max Fury Road should be the start of the Mad Max franchise. And the first three movies can just be interesting experiment pieces, I guess. I'm not really a big fan of this franchise, but I mean, I don't regret seeing them. Next up, we have a historical epic, Spartacus from 1961 or 62. I've stated before in a deleted Stephen King binge, I don't like Stanley Kubrick. My nickname for him is Stanley Shitbrick because I don't fucking like Stanley Kubrick. I think Stanley Kubrick was a giant piece of shit prick. But the original Spartacus really shouldn't be considered a Stanley Kubrick film because everything else was handled by Kirk Douglas. Before you ask, no, I've never seen the Spartacus TV series. Technically, because I've seen one episode of it, but I gave up on it after that. I've only seen this and the first episode. The movie I thought was pretty damn solid. I bought this a while ago, but this was on a list of movies that I wanted to finish. But I like Spartacus. I thought it was very well made, fairly entertaining. I didn't mind that it's 3 hours and 18 minutes, I think. Yeah, it's a good, well-made historical epic. It's a bit grittier and grungier than a lot of other historical epics, like Lawrence of Arabia or like especially Ben-Hur were made at the time. Spartacus just feels a bit more grungy and gnarly. It's got some great acting, some decent action scenes, and it's got a pretty heart-wrenching ending. Yeah, I like Spartacus. Will I watch more historical epics? Probably not. Because not really my favorite genre of film. I find them interesting and they're interesting to discuss, but not so much to watch, sadly. Next, we have Hitch, starring Will Smith, a rom-com. Yay. I mean, I just bought this because I like Will Smith and I wanted to check it out because I've seen the trailer to Hitch hundreds of times, various Sony DVDs that were coming out at the time. But Hitch was kind of disappointing. Again, it kind of like with Mad Max 3, it starts out good, but then it just drags and gets boring and falls into typical rom-com cliches. I thought I had an interesting premise, and obviously the highlight of the movie is Will Smith, of course. Love Will Smith. He's one of my favorite actors. But yeah, Hitch wasn't super impressed. And it also wasn't as funny. I think that's a big sin. Even if it is a rom-com, because technically the romantic part of the film is the focus, you still got to have some strong comedic elements. And in terms of the comedic elements, I feel Hitch was honestly restraining itself, which was unfortunate. Coming up next is Master Z Ip Man Legacy. I have seen all 4 Ip Man movies. This is the spin-off featured on the main villain, quote-unquote, from Ip Man 3. Cheng Tin-chi, played by Max Zhang. They expand on his character great in this film. It's got some fantastic fight scenes and really good martial arts choreography and a fairly decent story, and it's got some intimidating villains. I I liked Master Z. I thought it was a pretty damn solid movie, and I actually think it's better than the actual Ip Man 4. Ooh, I did not like Ip Man 4. um, when I get around to reviewing the Ip Man films, including this, I'll have some choice words to say about Ip Man 4. But yeah, not much to say. I liked Master Z. And speaking of martial arts movies, up next we have Jiu-Jitsu, starring Nicolas Cage and Tony Jaa, directed by the same guy who's doing all these Kickboxer reboot movies. This one I kind of liked. This one also really surprised me with its budget. Kind of like Psycho Goreman. It's kind of like an R-rated version of Power Rangers. With a pretty decent cast. It stars Nicolas Cage, Tony Jaa, who's obviously a famous martial arts actor, Frank Grillo from the Purge movies, and there's one other martial arts actress in this movie. It did remind me a bit of Psycho Goreman in the fact that it's got a bigger focus on practical tokusatsu special effects with really bad digital effects. This movie cost $25 million, and that shocks me with how shitty its digital effects are, but with how good its practical effects are. It had some decent fight scenes. It's got some decent colors, some decent music, and a fairly decent story. Really underutilizes Nicolas Cage. Understandable though, because he's probably the most expensive actor in this movie. Yeah, I like Jiu-Jitsu. Although it's a shame that the movie's called Jiu-Jitsu, yet there's very little use of the actual martial art called Jiu-Jitsu in this film. Apparently, the director is working on a sequel to this movie sometime soon, and I actually do eagerly await that film. I like Jiu-Jitsu. Another martial arts movie is Triple Threat, which also came out in 2019, which had another martial arts movie cast with Michael Jai White, Scott Adkins, Tiger Chen, Jija Yanin, and again, Tony Jaa. A lot of Tony Jaa movies, because Tony Jaa was also in Master Z. Triple Threat, I thought, was definitely, of these three martial arts movies I'm talking about, the weakest. It had decent fight scenes and a fairly okay story. It was serviceable at best. And I can see that the director was trying to be ambitious, because a lot of these martial arts actors, with the exception of Michael Jai White and Scott Adkins, they're all Asian and they don't really speak English. And you can tell they learned all of their lines in English phonetically, because their accents are so thick, and how they enunciate certain syllables in certain words is very cringy. But yeah, it had some decent fight scenes. Unfortunately, the most disappointing, my two favorite martial arts actors in this movie, Tony Jaa and Scott Adkins, they do fight, but Ong Bak versus Undisputed, it was not, unfortunately. It wasn't as awesome as I was hoping it would be, but it was still fairly decent. Next is Superman, Man of Tomorrow. The only actual superhero movie that I watched while I was on, well, mainstream superhero movie that I watched. I was actually really excited to see this one, because Trev had built it up in my mind, saying there's a lot of good alien action in this with Lobo and Martian Manhunter. I actually was pretty disappointed. I thought it had a really cool concept with a whole bunch of aliens teaming up, like actual aliens, Superman, Lobo, and Martian Manhunter, versus a giant kaiju-sized version of Parasite. But the movie just kind of meandered in its second half. It just got kind of dull and boring. It had a decent voice cast. It's got good animation, and the decent fight scenes that we do have, like the first fight between Superman and Lobo, is probably the best part of the movie, because Lobo is just such a hoot. Yeah, this movie was it was kind of weak. It could have been better. Another superhero movie is Bloodshot, starring Vin Diesel. Shame that Jason David Frank couldn't have actually done this movie, because I guess at one point he was signed on to do so. But Vin Diesel, I thought, was a pretty decent replacement. This one also took me by surprise. I thought it was pretty enjoyable. Um, its sole problem: Bloodshot is an R-rated comic book character, and this is a PG-13 film. Damn it, Sony! Come on now. That being said, that's the only issue I have with this movie. Other than that, had a really good story, really good special effects, awesome fight scenes. Bloodshot himself is a badass superhero. Yeah, great action scenes, good music, surprisingly. I liked Bloodshot. I thought it was a pretty good time. Next is John Wick 3. As I said in my movie collection video, not a big John Wick fan. I'm really not. I find the John Wick series to be very, very overrated. It's kind of like with how Batman is treated with me. No matter how good, quote unquote, a Batman movie can be, you're trying to sell Batman to somebody who's not a Batman fan. Similar to John Wick. No matter how good a John Wick movie can be, you're trying to sell it to someone who's just not a fan, especially with Keanu Reeves. I'm not a huge fan of Keanu Reeves. But I watched John Wick 3 and I actually enjoyed it. The first two movies, I liked the effort and I appreciated the effort that was put into them. And I can see they're objectively good movies, but John Wick 1 and 2 just really didn't impress me all that much. But John Wick 3 actually entertained the shit out of me. Lots of fight scenes in this, lots of action scenes in this movie. I think there's a grand total of 15. My favorite probably being one of the opening fight scenes when John Wick is in the knife shop. That was a pretty badass moment. And of course, when John Wick teams up with Halle Berry's character, that was also pretty awesome. Ooh, my ass hurts. Yeah, I'll finally admit it. I see the potential now. I think I'm a very minor fan of John Wick now. I still think they're highly overrated, but John Wick is now just decent for me. Next is Gemini Man, starring Will Smith, another 2019 movie. Same for John Wick 3. Gemini Man I mean, I saw some of the trailers when it was coming out, but it was actually recommended to me by my brother. And he told me that he's also a really big Will Smith fan. And that's something he and I share in common. So I finally decided to check out Gemini Man. I saw it at Walmart for like $7. So I just said, okay, I'll pick this up. Went into Gemini Man. I was very pleasantly surprised. This honestly, I kept saying to myself, this would make for such a good Deadshot movie, honestly. Just tweak some of the dialogue and tweak the story. This would make a really solid solo Deadshot movie from Suicide Squad. Great action scenes, really good special effects. The CG de-aging on the cloned Will Smith character in this movie was ambitious, and I could see what the filmmakers were going for. At the end of the day, though, I don't think it was bad. I just think it was unnecessary, because aside from Will Smith's facial hair and his actual hair, he hasn't aged much in his face. They could have just easily used makeup to make him look younger. Because the only CG de-aging on the young Will Smith that looked questionable was his mouth. I used to like Hulk 2003. Now I just like all of the Hulk scenes in that movie, but the movie around them was boring as shit. And yes, I know, Gemini Man was directed by the same dude who did Hulk 2003. Definitely a way better movie. Fight scenes were good. The action scenes were great. The story was engaging and interesting. The dialogue was well written, and it had a couple really good twists and turns. Gemini Man was a very pleasant surprise. Now for the one of only two show, well, technically three, but I consider them one show because the stories are only 1 month apart in terms of the story. I actually have it right here. Mega Monster Battle. Oh, that's Ultraman Zero. Fuck. Well, I watched this too. But this is nothing new. I've seen all of this stuff before, so this doesn't count. Mega Monster Battle Ultra Galaxy Legends Seasons 1 and 2, plus Mega Monster Battle Ultra Galaxy Legends the movie. God, that gives GMK a run for its money. Rolls right off your tongue. I at first kind of struggled with Mega Monster Battle, but I just kind of stuck to it. And I ended up being very pleasantly surprised by Mega Monster Battle. I thought it was a pretty damn solid series. Cheap as fuck. And you could definitely tell this is when Super Eye Productions was starting to go really broke because of Chayo Productions really starting to fuck with them. But Mega Monster Battle Ultra Galaxy Legends was a pretty decent couple of shows. 13 episodes apiece, so they are fairly easy to watch. And of course, leading into, I'll just call it Ultraman Zero's first movie, it's still awesome. I've seen this movie before too, but I just really wanted to rewatch it because it starts the Ultraman Zero trilogy, but it also serves as a really good conclusion to the Mega Monster Battle stuff. It's an awesome movie. It introduces, in my opinion, the greatest movie villain of all time in Ultraman Belial. It's got tons of fan service to the classic Showa era Ultraman franchise. Great fight scenes, a giant collection of monsters that just get fucked the fuck up. Yeah, this movie's great. And the second show that I watched, well, I more finished, was, speaking of Hulk, I finally now have seen all 87 episodes of the Lou Ferrigno Hulk show from 1978. Season 5 sucked ass. I don't really know what was the reason why The Incredible Hulk was canceled, but if it's because season 5 sucked, I'd believe it. Season 5 was boring, bland, dull. There was a couple episodes that were kind of entertaining. One was ruined by a bad twist, and one was there was one good episode. It had to deal with an abusive family and Hulk taking them on, but that was the only good one. And thankfully it's only 7 episodes, but the other 6 surrounding that good one are just really difficult to sit through. So yeah, Hulk season 5 was definitely rough. Last 3 movies, I finally have seen. Well, I did see Quiet Place 2 in theaters right before I went on paternity leave. First movie that I saw in theaters since Birds of Prey. Like a year and a half later. Fuck. Loved it. But I finally have seen the new Mortal Kombat movie. In short, it's awesome. I dug the fuck out of this movie. This is not quite as good as Rampage as a video game movie, but still is pretty damn awesome. Definitely embraces its R rating. It's got a really good budget. It's definitely more game friendly than the other 2 Mortal Kombat movies. Oh, it's hot in here. I need to turn my AC on. Great fight scenes, a decent story. I dug the fuck out of this movie. I thought it was pretty damn entertaining. Next, we have Train to Busan Peninsula. I used to be part of a really big zombie movie group on Facebook, and I was still around when Train to Busan 2 came out. I'll just call it Train to Busan 2. The first Train to Busan made me bawl my fucking eyes out at the very end. Really solid zombie movie, really well-made film. Definitely one of the best zombie movies to come out in the last 10 years. The only reason I didn't list it as one of my favorites in my top 10 zombie movies, the ending just makes me bawl my fucking eyes out. It's just such a gut punch ending. It's not very rewatchable. Now, Train to Busan 2, when this movie was coming out, there was a lot of excitement, and when it finally dropped, there was a lot of hate. Lots of people were just shitting all over this movie. One person described it as 28 Days Later meets Fast and Furious. So that had me a little scared. But then I actually sat down and watched Train to Busan 2. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was a pretty damn decent sequel. Not as emotional as the first movie, but I actually think in that sense that makes it a bit of a better movie because its ending is not nearly so much of a gut punch. I can see where people are saying it's like 28 Days Later meets Fast and Furious because there's quite a few car chases in the film, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I thought it was pretty entertaining. There's a lot of really bad, obvious CG clumps of zombie bodies all over the place that are pretty obvious and fake. But there's some good gunplay. There's some good action scenes. There's a couple decent characters. Overall, I like Train to Busan too. I thought it was a pretty damn solid movie. Definitely the best Shudder exclusive movie ever made that I've seen thus far. Because aside from that and kind of Blood Quantum, everything Shudder exclusive has been garbage. And finally, after 17 fucking years, Bad Boys for Life, aka Bad Boys 3, dropped, made a shit ton of money, and revitalized the Bad Boys franchise. There's a lot of Will Smith movies in this list. Bad Boys 3 was awesome. Not worth waiting 17 years for a fucking sequel. What the fuck? But at least it was successful enough to give us a fourth film on the way. Bad Boys 3 was awesome. It was funny, it was violent and gory, action-packed, had a really good sense of continuity, really good soundtrack, excellent action scenes, and at the best of all, it was just funny. This felt perfectly like, not to be a bit crude, I don't say this offensively, like Black Lethal Weapon. This movie kicked fucking ass. Felt exactly at home in the Bad Boys timeline. Bad Boys for Life was fucking awesome. So with all that being said, that's all the movies that I watched while I was on paternity leave. I'm sad paternity leave is over because now I actually have to go back to work. Fuck. I have a few movies left. Actually, no, I have only 3 movies left to watch. Samurai Rebellion, I have to finish Kwaidan, and The Empty Man. Those are the last 3 movies that I have to watch before I've watched all movies that I own. Finally get cross off all that checklist. Still have a shit ton of TV shows to watch, including a crap ton of Ultraman stuff. Oh, that's another thing too. I watched the original Ultra Q. It was awful. I'm a big Ultraman fan, but Ultra Q I did not like at all. It was a real... No, of all the shit that I watched while I was on paternity leave, even shittier than the Land Before Time sequels, Ultra Q was the biggest hurdle for me to sit through. Damn. Yeah, that was all the shit that I watched while I was on leave. I'm sad that it's over because I have to go back to work, but I missed the money, so oh well. Look forward to tomorrow's video. Post your comments down below. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button and hit the like button and hit the subscribe button and share this video with your friends. And as always, I will see you guys in the next video.